Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Call the meeting back to order. Next on the agenda was ADM 1824. As we proceed into our discussions for the remainder of today, I'd like to remind the delegates, let's keep the discussion civil and professional so we can proceed through these things in a good and orderly manner. Thank you. Pete, put the original motion up there so they can see that. Yeah, the original 1824 before the substitute comes up. Oh, I see it. Okay. Thanks.
The original motion was made as a response or a way of dealing with, I don't know if outliers is the correct term, because there seems to be an increasing number of these incidences, at least in my experience. Parents and coaches who actively interfere with the running of the tournament, in effect bullying not just the staff, but other players, other coaches, parents. Well, this mostly is something that happens at scholastics, and I don't know if it's a unique New York phenomenon, but I suspect it happens in other parts of the country too, maybe not as much, where some agitated parents are unsatisfied with whatever the status quo is regarding their kid, and some parents have been known to approach other kids who are opponents or previous opponents of their own children with, I guess, rather intensified expressions of concern over what happened or is happening in the game, and also with the staff as well, tournament staff. These parents technically are spectators, but it's, in my opinion, not quite so simple, because they're also acting in the capacity as the legal guardian of their kid, their children, their minor, who is participating in the tournament. So it's easy to say, well, spectators have no rights, and that's true, but it muddies the water somewhat when the spectator is a parent who is acting, perhaps, who is asserting, acting in a protective capacity to his kid. So this makes it a little unclear to just say, well, you just tell them to leave, you have no rights here. And the counter argument is, there's an issue with my kid that needs my presence, my intervention. Something wrong, something very wrong is happening. And when the issue is not resolved to their satisfaction, then it really does become a case of the parent actually bullying, engaging in bullying of maybe the other player, of the staff, or of other parents or coaches. So perhaps this is more of an anti-bullying issue specifically than a jurisdictional issue of keeping records of improper behavior. So Jeff Weevil proposed a substitute motion, which I would like to propose be considered at this time. The substitute for ADM 24 that he wrote up and proposed, and I would like to move that this be substituted instead of ADM 24, in place of ADM 24.
Second.
Second.
Discussion about the substitute motion.
Scroll up.
So what Steve has agreed to is a replacement for his motion, a substitute. So let's have the substitute motion up on the screen so the delegates can see it.
And the parliamentarian has informed us that this can just substitute for the main motion, so this is now the motion which is on the floor.
Floor is open for discussion of this motion.
I think one of the positive features of this is that even though we already have rules covering spectators, this specifically addresses it specifically addresses the fact that the organizer has a right to respond to violations of the tournament decorum, and that could in fact include ejection from the tournament site. And that specifically, well, it would possibly be, depending on how the board and the council and their own legal counsel finally end up wording it, it could show that this is not an ad hoc decision to eject someone from the tournament. This is actually codified in the rules, that this is one of the things that happens. It's in the rules that improper behavior of an extreme kind can be met with ejection from the tournament, and it's not just something that the tournament director thought up on the spot.
Point of information, what does legal in there mean? It says create a legal anti-bullying. So for the makers, what are you contemplating when you say the word legal there?
As a writer, I was just trying to...
Use the microphone, Jeff, please.
I was just trying to make it so that it would be one that would withstand a legal challenge. So, with legal counsel, come up with one that can withhold a legal challenge, a reasonable legal challenge.
I know that bullying is used a lot, Jeff, here, but maybe we can just change this to code of conduct, because to me this is code of conduct rather than saying anti-bullying, that we need to educate parents as to how to behave at tournaments, and usually code of conduct is part of the problem. How long have parents been a problem at tournaments, especially those who aren't aware of some of the things that are going on? And it's time that we educate them, at least to a certain extent, as best as we can. So I would say code of conduct every time it says anti-bullying here. As a motion to amend the substitute motion, I would like to change some of the wording here to create a code of conduct that can be presented at the 2019 U.S. Open Delegates Meeting and take action against violators of the code of conduct and explicitly allow such actions to include ejection from the tournament site. We just want a way to be able to help tournament directors, help staff, find a way to help deal with parents who are being unruly. And some of these parents are actually the paying members, because in theory they're paying for their children to be members. And it's a difficult situation, because if you have a parent who is disillusioned with what goes on at the tournament, their child is no longer going to come to the tournament at some point, and they're no longer going to be paying for their child's membership. So we have issues there as well. And I think that it's something that we need to educate first. So that's the whole point of this entire thing, is that we have a way at U.S. chess events, it helps organizers deal with the problem, which is that some parents are unaware. It helps coaches tell their parents, hey, let's go to this. Let's show people, how do we educate them to behave at a tournament. I can't tell you how many times I've dealt with parents who are causing problems right before the game starts, during the games, and after the games, all three situations. And that's usually one of the major issues in running a scholastic tournament.
Second.
I second it too. Does anyone want to speak at that mic?
Ken? In the back, Ken?
So there's a motion to amend on the floor right now?
Yes.
Yes, it was seconded.
All right, I
So
think-
can we clarify what specific portions of the motion that's up there, what words are going to be amended?
Yeah.
If we can change any anti-bullying to code of conduct, and you may not even need the word legal in there. So anti-bullying code should be code of conduct.
Is that acceptable?
Yes.
By the maker?
Yeah.
I'm one of the makers as well.
Is that acceptable by the maker of the motion?
Yes, with the added provision to remove the word legal, because we're assuming that the document that comes out of the board is in fact legal.
Okay.
And is it fair to assume that what you're talking about is a spectator code of conduct?
Yes, I
Because
mean,
we already have a member code of conduct, and
Yes.
So maybe insert the word spectator as well.
Yes, spectator, and we can even put this in the scholastic regulations because the code of conduct inside this, there is a spectator conduct in the scholastic regs, and it doesn't address this.
Why don't you say tournament code of conduct?
Or a tournament code of conduct. How about
Covers
that?
everybody.
Does a tournament code of conduct work here?
Rule 20A, conduct of players and spectators.
Yeah, we know about Rule 28, and it doesn't address the issues that I already stated before, and I think it should specify spectator code of conduct so that it's not confused with situations that we already have remedies for. We have remedies for members in tournaments who are doing things that we don't want them to do, but we don't really have a good remedy or a way to address this situation, which I don't believe Rule 28 does address.
Ken, are you speaking against in the back of the room?
I am speaking against the main motion, yes.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
I must say I'm
Since it's
confused.
the amended motion on, then
No, there is a substitute motion which has replaced the ADM that was printed. So the main motion is now this one.
okay,
Right, Mr. Parliamentarian?
that is correct.
go ahead.
Ken, go ahead.
It was accepted as friendly by the maker.
Ken, are you going to say something, or
While I'm waiting for issues to be resolved.
what?
There are no more issues to be resolved. You may speak for
Thank you.
or against.
Well, I must say I'm confused. The code should include giving the tournament director and/or organizers empowerment to take action against violators of this code of conduct and explicitly allow such actions to include ejection from the tournament site. Golly gee willikers, I kind of remember reading that already in the official rules of chess. The solution to the problem, that's yes, but a tournament director may deal with unruly spectators already. They have the empowerment to do so. Kick them out. If an organizer wants to set a particular set of rules for spectators at events that the organizer runs, that's perfectly fine. The solution to the problem is not to publish more words. It's to enforce a zero-tolerance attitude against bad behavior. Once the message gets out that this zero-tolerance attitude will be enforced, your behavior problems will take care of themselves in large part. The truly unruly can be dealt with separately.
I'm very strongly in favor of any actions to eliminate this kind of behavior, but I'm not sure that because we say that we have the power, that changes the legal climate whatsoever. I think parents still could sue us if the issues came up. I don't think we create any superior legal environment by passing this, although I still would support passing it just because it makes a statement that I think should be made. I feel that parents can say, I have the right to be there with my child. That's true. And we could say, we could put you out, and in so doing, we're putting out the child too, which I think we have the right if they violate our rules. I think that's pretty clear. So I don't think it needs to be muddied that much. Either we let them stay or we kick them and their child out. So I don't think that legal guardianship should interfere. What I would suggest is that we set a policy, and it may not necessarily be an ADM, that I agree here that we need to educate parents. And we used to do that. We used to have meetings in which we would tell the parents exactly what is expected of them. And I would be happy when any nationals I go to help conduct such meetings, and I think if we do that, it'll eliminate a lot of the problems. And this may not be a problem in open carry states, I don't know.
Open carry state.
We still do those seminars for This Is Your First Tournament at most of our national scholastics, so we are trying to do that.
Mr. President, I just wanted to report, and I apologize.
Harold, you gotta get
I
right in there.
apologize. Okay, I apologize for being late. I was trying to retrieve my hat, which I'm not sure where it is. The workshop considered only the original motion, but the thought of a workshop was to refer it to the executive board. The vote was 23 to 5 to the workshop considered only the original motion, and the voting there was referred to the executive board by a vote of 23 to 5 to 1.
In the back of the room?
Brian Yang, Kansas. I had a quick point of information for the makers. How is this different from the standard of conduct in the Code of Ethics, which is in your delegates call on page 30? It says the actions of and the behaviors of players, tournament directors, sponsors, and other individuals and entities participating in U.S. chess activities, and goes on. How's this different from other individuals and entities?
Actually, I'll take that question to answer it. The code of conduct the code of ethics can, by definition, only apply to members of this organization, violation of which basically can only be punished by deriving said member from the rights of membership with this organization. I think from the original motion, not to speak to it, but I think the original motion is very clear that Steve's concern is with people who are not members of the organization, and I think that's the fundamental difference.
Steve?
Yeah, considering some of the issues.
Just a second. Does that clarify your point of information?
What's the define other individual entities?
I couldn't understand what you just said. I'm sorry.
Could you define other individuals and entities for me?
Affiliates.
Other
Like-
individuals, entities.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Apologies. Other individuals and entities. What are those, members or non-members? Or I thought other.
Code of conduct, the code of ethics can only apply to members. And remember, we have members and members who are individuals, plus we have entities who are members. We call them affiliates.
I understand. Thank you.
I think it also is designed to encompass if I'm incorporated in some way.
Got it.
Steve?
In response to some of the issues raised during this discussion, I'd like to propose an additional amendment to this motion to, after the word non-playing spectators, I'd like to insert specifically including parents and coaches of players in the tournament.
Okay, what about aunts and uncles and cousins and nephews and...
Parents, specifically including parents and guardians and coaches of players in the tournament. I think that those words do not exist anywhere, and that addresses one of the main concerns, which is that the parent is using the pretext, presumably, of his paying the entry fee for his minor player to justify overriding the rule, or at least a challenge to the spectating rule.
I would think that the scope of this would be something that the EB would discuss as it works to develop the motion or the product. So I don't think we need to have the delegates specified to that level of detail in the motion.
No, I think this is just a directive. We're here to help organizers.
Hang on a second, Jen. Steve has properly made an amendment. So do we have a second to his amendment?
I withdraw it.
It's withdrawn.
So I think this is a matter of helping the board and helping us be able to figure out a way to educate. And this is an objective. We want to help new parents. We want to help parents who already are existing. We want to help organizers here who have a difficult time of dealing with this sort of problem. And I think somehow we have to figure out a way. They're not members, but at the same time, they have a lot of power over members, okay? And I think that this is part of it. So both the executive board and the Scholastic Council need to take this into account. So I would like to refer this motion to both the executive board and the Scholastic Council.
I would remind you that the Scholastic Council is an executive board appointed committee, and we would definitely seek their expertise as we draft a product and put it to numerous committees for review.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure that referral to the executive committee of a motion that asks to the executive board of a motion that asks the executive board to do something is particularly effective for any purpose. So I'm not sure that that makes much sense. I mean,
All right, withdrawn.
Ernie?
I move to call the question to have the EB consider the subject.
Is there any objection to calling the question? The question is called.
And we're voting on the referral, is that correct?
We are voting on the motion as written on the screen.
Oh, okay.
Which is a referral.
Yes. All in favor of the motion, raise your credentials. Opposed, raise your credentials. Motion passes.
Yes, sir.
1825. Mr. Emmett.
This proposal stems pretty much from a specific device that was approved apparently rather quickly. It was the Chess Note R recording device, and so that's, I guess, the basis of this motion, but I think it can apply well to other situations that may happen. And I don't know the circumstances for how this device got approved. It was apparently approved by U.S. Chess. I asked one member of the executive board who did not know how it was approved. Somebody said it was approved by the Rules Committee, which I'm a member of, and I wasn't aware of anything from the Rules Committee that had approved it. So this approval apparently was done in a way that was not in an open and transparent manner. Now, I understand that there may be pressures to influence evaluators by manufacturers of devices, and that may provide a basis for keeping the process secret, because it's possible that the manufacturer could attempt to influence an individual, if he knew who it was, that were in the process of approving his device. However, I disagree with that rationale, because we already have committees on the board who have sanctioning power, whose identities, the composition of which is not a secret. For example, we have an ethics committee where the identities of the people are known. And some of those issues that come up at the ethics committee involve very serious penalties. So that as a committee is not, I guess, protected from the influence of perhaps one of the people who is, one of the individuals who is under review. So if the argument that we need to keep the identity of the committee or the group of individuals that's evaluating this device secret to protect them from being influenced, presumably being offered payments for approving devices, that doesn't apply to other committees. We have other committees where we have serious issues involved, and there may be substantial financial motivation by the parties involved to try and influence the action. So those identities of those people are known. Also, I believe if a committee, if a group that's supposed to be evaluating a device is doing so secretly, I think that does not stop the people who are doing that. If they're so inclined to accept some kind of a unethical offer from a manufacturer, it doesn't stop them from contacting the manufacturer themselves and making the offer. I mean, I think it might even make it possibly more likely, if the committee and the composition is secret, to have some arrangement made. So I don't think the fact that we need to protect the individuals from the possibility of unethical actions on behalf of themselves and the manufacturers of the device is a justification for keeping the committee that's doing this evaluation in secret. And we've heard many times in this meeting that U.S. Chess is a 501c3 educational corporation or organization. And we are supposed to establish and maintain business practices in accordance with IRS and government procedures. I don't think having a secret committee or a secret group that's empowered to make decisions that affect all of us, because as directors or players, we're subject to the effect of a device that's been approved possibly without considering all the requirements. Right now, I'm not aware of a standard of best practices for approving, for example, an electronic scorekeeping device. There should be a standard of best practices. I'm not sure how a device could be approved without developing such a standard. And that should be developed in an open manner. So I think this is the basis for this motion.
Okay.
It has been the practice of this body for a number of years to limit the time of any one individual at the mic to 3 minutes. We will go back to that standard for the rest of the meeting. So recognize at the, President Hofftower is speaking to the motion on the floor, so he's handed me the chair temporarily while he does that. I think, Mike, you were next in line, so go ahead.
Yeah, what I'm speaking right now on behalf is providing additional context for the delegates. When the chess noter device came to the to U.S. Chess, the executive board had no knowledge that the device had come there. The executive board found out that the committee had reviewed the device and transmitted approval of the device to the manufacturer. We found that out at that time. So at that time, the cat was already out of the bag. And for us to say, no, we withdraw that approval, it had been published on a website, in a U.S. Chess letter and everything. So at that point in time, so we were kind of stuck at that point in time. I would agree with Steve that we need to have appropriate committees looking at these things. I agree, and it's my perspective that we already have appropriate committees that the executive board appoints to look at these devices. I would also agree that we probably need to have and this is where the transparency comes in, is how is the device going to be looked at? What are the standards that the device must pass in order for it to be approved? So I think that's where the transparency is.
Information, you said a committee approved it. What committee?
A committee of 3 persons that were appointed for the review of those types of devices.
And their identity is to remain secret.
Unless the executive board, says we're going to divulge those names, and I'm not going to divulge them.
The committee itself has informed me that it's okay to divulge the names.
Okay?
Well, that's nice. Thank you.
David, go ahead and divulge those names.
Okay. It is myself, Tim Just, and Sam Sloan. Ken Sloan. Sorry.
I was worried there, David.
Ken Sloan. Okay.
Natural mistake.
The point, okay. By the way, I had no contact with the maker of the device. Neither did the rest of the committee during the approval process. There is, even though it may or may not be called a protocol, there is a list of requirements for such a device. It is online at the U.S. Chess site. We do indeed follow that guideline step by step when we're evaluating that device. And in our opinion, it passed those requirements. Okay. So from that standpoint, there was no collusion with the manufacturer. There was transparency. Now, I also understand that any electronic device, clock, score sheet, etc., will be going through the EB from here on out. And indeed that is going to happen. We are currently evaluating another device, and we will send our recommendation to the executive board. Thank you.
Mr. Judd at the floor mic, please.
I strongly agree with this amendment. In fact, I think one of the issues is that we need to look at the unintended consequences of that, and for that, I think we need to enlarge the number of people looking at it. I certainly feel the Scholastic Committee should be involved because we've had so many issues that come up. It's impossible to stop cheating altogether. However, I think we can minimize it. The more devices we get in without looking at how they will be used. I was on one of the original ones that had to approve the Monroy when it came out. And we were told by the makers of the Monroy that there would be a program on a chess computer that the TD would have that would let him know every single step that was being used on a Monroy. Anytime the Monroy was touched, anything that was done to it, he would know. Well, so with that in mind, we approved it. However, the USCF decided it was too expensive to have a TD there, so that was never done. So we had no way of telling. Now, on a different device, which was being used, I know with one of my students, one of the parents saw from a balcony with binoculars that whenever he left, the kid was tapping on it and using it in an illegal way. Later, it was found that there was a strong chess playing program on it. And TDs do not like to kick kids out of tournaments. Let's face it, they spend a lot of money to get there. So the TD said, well, the kid only had 1 point, so I don't think he was cheating with it. I said, well, let's not arrest any poor person for stealing then. So it's just something that we need to keep on top of, and I think the more people that look at it, I would even approve it conditionally with a period of review on its use before giving it complete approval. So I strongly support this motion.
Time's up.
By the way, all communications with the manufacturer of any device go through the office. Thank you.
Mr. Rowe.
So I know what Chestnut R has done since the approval, and US Chess as an organization has to be careful with what they're doing because on the Chestnut R website there is a logo, and I'm looking at it right now, and it says it's a logo. It says US Chess Federation Electronic Score Sheet Certified. So I've never seen that logo before. I only see that it's approved at certain events, but they're using the logo. I've seen them at nationals go around and tell people inside team rooms that this occurred, okay? They're also emailing clients, and they're having their clients send the organizers of tournaments emails before the tournament saying, my son, my daughter, I will be using this electronic score sheet. It is approved and certified by US Chess, linking us to the exact email or the exact US Chess document, allowing them to use it, and it puts the organizer in a very tough position. Because yes, you can ban them as a separate organizer. However, you also don't want to ban them from playing the tournament if that's what's going to decide if they're playing the tournament or not. So the approval process for this, we have to be really careful, in my opinion, about how we let these outside organizations, because the manufacturer, in my opinion, has taken complete advantage of this certification to cause a lot of issues for organizers. And we're also dealing with the secondary factor, which many people up here have mentioned, which is the idea that there's more people who are using cell phones who are cheating at tournaments, and it's a constant issue for organizers and tournament directors. So we have to be really careful as to how we approve electronic scorekeeping when the technology is getting faster than the tournaments.
I would like, I can, point of privilege, not point of privilege. The chair will address one issue that did come up there. We are aware that certainly at the elementary tournament in Nashville, that the manufacturer of the device was there and was going to team rooms. And I am also aware that the national events director, once he caught wind of that, stopped that practice emphatically. And when our national events director stops something emphatically, he's usually fairly effective. At the rear mic, Mr. Hoffpower.
Yeah, speaking against this in its current format, my concern is the last sentence, the committee shall adopt a protocol. So there are going to be multiple committees all adopting different protocols every time a device gets looked at. And I have a problem with that. The manufacturer of device needs standards. And I think that we need to have language in this that causes this organization to produce what are the standards for manufacture of your device, so that when it comes to US Chess, it has a reasonable chance of not only passing those standards, but then being approved. Otherwise, we're going to have Committee X says the standard for a clock is this. Committee Y says the standard for a clock is that. And if there are any differences, that will open us up for some legal action that I don't think we want to get involved with. So what I would recommend is that the makers of this motion consider some language that changes this to, instead of adopting a protocol for evaluating, that gets this into the right hands so that we develop actual standards that that can be publicized for manufacturers of these different types of devices, so they know what they're trying to make.
Hold on a second.
Out of
Mr.
order.
Kuhn, as a point of information, is there an existing protocol for evaluation? I think you said there was. Did you not?
There is an existing recommendations for approval online on the US Chess site.
Does it apply to all types of devices? It only applies to score sheets. There is none for clocks.
Okay.
None for clocks.
Which is part of the rationale in this document here. So that's my point.
There are guidelines for electronic score sheeting, which we evaluate step by step of those guidelines for the device.
Thank you, sir. Front mic, Steve.
Yes, I'd like to address what Mike said, but before I do that, I just want to point out a couple things. Apparently, approval, whatever that constituted, was given to the manufacturer without knowledge of the executive board until after the fact. And that is extremely improper, in my opinion, to say the least. Also, the selection of the individuals to, I don't want to make a personal aspersions against the individuals involved, but the process to select them, I'm a member of the Rules Committee. I had no knowledge that this was going on. Maybe there was some kind of a notification sent out to the Rules Committee that there was going to be a subcommittee formed and I missed it. But I certainly had no knowledge that this was being done. No one here seems to have, I don't know how the committee was actually, formed, but it seemed like it was not formed in an open fashion. It was formed in a rather non-open fashion. So I think that those two things at least need to be addressed, because that was not done properly. As to Mike's recommendation, I'm wondering if he would be satisfied, and if he thinks correctly, I would like to so move to amend the motion to substitute the word substitute the word committee with executive board. So go down to this motion and it says the committee shall adopt the protocol. Would he be satisfied if it said the executive board shall adopt the protocol for approving these devices?
With input from committees?
Does the executive board want to do that? That's what committees are.
You address it.
I'm not satisfied that with that kind of language, because my discussion was about that the organization should have standards, and not in protocols, is not a standard. So I think we need to have clear standards that are published for clocks, chess boards, chess sets, electronic devices, because if somebody comes to us and wants to get a chess board approved, technically all we have is the rule book to refer to. Now I would argue that's enough, but we may want to have specific standards that are published by the organization, so that device manufacturers can make something that they have a reasonable chance of getting through the approval process.
All right, well, I don't want to run that far on my time, but I would like to amend the motion if I can do so within the time limits then. The committee, in consultation with the executive board, shall adopt a process for determining standards and best practices for evaluating equipment. So,
From a procedural standpoint, Mike, address this issue. From a procedural standpoint, in the instant case, changes have been made in the procedure already. And I think you addressed that a little bit, but you might address that further.
Yes. So when the office knows, as part of a change to the procedure that has been enforced by our executive director, that when any type of device comes in and there is a request for it to be certified, then the executive board is notified that a device has been put forth. Here's the name of the device, here's the manufacturer, etc. And then the executive board is asked to go ahead and approve that the device enter the certification process. So I think, the whole first half of what you're writing up there about requests are to be made to the executive board, that's a matter of procedure that's already been adopted in the office.
Rear mic, Mr. Velez.
Ryan Velez, Louisville, Kentucky. I'm also chair of the best committee ever, the Clocks Committee. And I wanted to speak, I'm not necessarily sure I'm against or for this yet, but essentially what I'm wanting to tell everybody is, in the Clock Committee, we did not want to rank clocks because of legal potential. Say like, oh, that clock's terrible, and this clock's great, because then the person we say is terrible might, file a lawsuit because we're disenfranchising their product. But regardless, with this specific concept, I think that it makes sense to potentially have some kind of committee or the EB or something, evaluate things and create standards, which is exactly what we're doing in the Clock Committee. But I do think, even in the campaign when I was running, I basically stated numerous times everywhere on the internet that creating guides and things for manufacturers and sellers is an important part of communicating with them. Because we get tons and tons of clocks out there that don't have time delay, for example. So putting out, our standards in a concise way somewhere on the website is useful. And so, I may not be for this language up here, but that's kind of what I would recommend to the original makers of the motion. Thank you.
The front mic.
I would like to echo that a clear set of requirements is a really good idea, and I would also like to argue that Mr. Schutz's suggestion that that approval be conditional based on a probationary period is a really good idea.
Back mic.
Maureen from Mount South Carolina. I echo those same sentiments in that I think there should be a clear evaluation of any new products. As you say, these technology is moving faster than the speed of light. Any new products coming in should have that time period where they can be evaluated. So I guess I'm reiterating the same thing.
Remember that people speaking for the motion come to the front mic.
Oh.
People speaking against the
Sorry.
motion go to the rear mic.
Thank you. I'll go up to the first one here.
Mike.
All right. So people know me. I'm anything but a Luddite, but except when it comes to electronic scorekeeping devices. And I think the idea that if you meet these requirements, you pass no matter what, implies we have thought of everything and we've written everything down. And what people didn't think about was the innovation. The guy who came up with this method of repurposing obsolete smartphones is a very smart way. You don't have to get unique hardware. You can possibly bring the cost down. The problem is it's chaos if it works. If we have a floor where 80% of the people have repurposed smartphones, I can't tell one from a real smartphone. And I have this right now. So why is that smartphone? We have published a major variation that shows notator is not allowed at our events, and we will stay with that. It is a really fine idea if 2% of the people have them, and once it hits 20, guys can. I got to go every round, go around and check, because if there are unique ones out there, someone could switch it in round 2, and we got to go back again, and he could switch it on move 10, because in a large tournament you would have no idea, just chaos. And that's the problem with that checklist. They checked all the boxes, but there are boxes that people didn't think about.
I have a point of information, actually 2 points of information. The first one is for the Vice President. If U.S. Chess approves or certifies a device, does that mandate that it must be used in a tournament setting?
Not according to our rules as they exist today. Our organizers,
That's
tournament
correct.
directors have the right to dictate a score sheet for a particular event.
That answers both my points of information. Thank you. In the back, Mike?
Bob Messenger, representing Massachusetts. I'd like to move to refer this motion to the Executive Board.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to refer this motion to the Executive Board for further consideration. Discussion of the motion to refer. Seeing none.
I have a question. Point of information. Do we have the ability? Sorry. Do we have the ability to uncertify a device?
Yeah, I understand your question, but that's not the question that's up right now. But the Executive Board will, if this motion gets approved, the Executive Board will definitely take that under advisement as part of our process. Okay, I'll call the vote on the motion to refer to the Executive Board. All those in favor of referring, raise your hands, raise your credentials. All opposed to referring?
Point
The
of
motion.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The motion is referred.
Point of information, will the Executive Board also request the input from the Scholastic Committee? And the reason I ask that question is because this affects us much more. Adults have better opportunity to defend themselves and understand the implications of an electronic device. Kids often have never seen one, they're intimidated by it. The effect of it being misused is much more profound, and I request that the Executive Board solicit the opinions of the Scholastic Committee.
The Executive Board will be seeking, I'm sure, the opinions of multiple committees on this.
But I would reject the notion that this is primarily a scholastic issue. This is an issue that's pervasive across the organization. And while it may rear its head when you have parents who have purchased devices that they may or may not understand, and one or two children at events may not know how to use their devices properly, I submit the same thing happens with adults. So it's not a scholastic issue, it's an issue for the organization as a whole. But I'm sure we'll seek the input of multiple people in the process.
Okay, 1826. Mr. Emmett.
I only had 4 this year, so it's a good year. This
You're
was
slipping, Steve.
Yeah. I'm getting older. This is just a recommendation, and it's nothing more. But I think that it's not improper for the delegates to recommend things to the board. And the basis for this recommendation is that we have a lot of issues now, specifically with allegations made of improper actions or things involving, ratings that may or may not have been affected incorrectly, manipulated. A lot of things that possibly need some specific expertise and research done. And sometimes this research is important for a committee that's considering a complaint, for example. And it's not just ethics, it could be other committees too. And I think a technical director is something we used to have. We have, in fact, 2 previous technical directors in the room here. And they were performing useful services to the Federation. And I understand that at the time of previous budget cuts, that it was not feasible to continue that particular position. And while I don't want to micromanage the office, I would just like to recommend that there are needs that possibly are not being completely addressed, that a technical director who has a lot of specific expertise as delineated in the ADM would be helpful. It would be a helpful person to have on staff. And no, I'm not applying for the position.
I'd like to ask whoever can answer this, what would be the financial impact on our budget if this passes?
The financial impact would be however much we're paying this person. No, seriously.
Well, I mean,
Plus,
seriously,
I know. Plus,
can we handle it?
Plus another 30 to 40% for the payroll overhead and all that kind of stuff. Plus all the stuff to work with. $100 grand is probably not unreasonable You know, when you add all the pieces and stuff up, it's probably about that. That's probably, well, that's probably about it, yeah.
That's not a salary.
That's not a salary. That's the, you ask the overall impact, it's probably about that.
Maybe I should reconsider not applying.
Tim, it would essentially drive us to negative budget.
I didn't say that was the salaries.
It does say in this recommendation that it says if it determines that such an additional staff expense is financially viable. I'm happy to let the executive board determine that. That's what they do, those things. So if it's determined that such an expense is feasible, then the delegates would like to recommend that they consider adding this policy if it's not going to be something that's out of order financially, because I think there are benefits to be achieved as well that have financial repercussions in favorable to the organization.
I have a point of information. I'd like to ask a question. When this originally came up, the concern seemed to be that we need somebody to oversee tournament results and look for things that are fishy. Now, yesterday in the presentation, we were told that we are gradually going to update all of our data systems, our computer systems, and everything else. And I was wondering if it's feasible that when we do upgrade all our computer systems, that we build in a way for the computer to red flag results that look suspicious, which would eliminate the need for this technical director.
Well, I think again, I'm just speaking to answer your point of information from the standpoint of what's written in here is the rationale. There are multiple reasons listed, and what you listed is only a small part of the overall rationale that's listed here.
Well, that seemed to be the main concern. But, you know, that's it. Is it feasible as far as ratings manipulations is concerned, to have the new computer system red flag results that seem suspicious?
We can add it as a requirement. I mean, that's the answer at this point, and it's feasible.
I would recommend that you do.
Mr. President, the Executive Director of U.S. Chess has full authority over the organizational structure of the staff and hiring and firing decisions. I therefore move to refer this motion to the Executive Director.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded to refer this motion to the Executive Director for further consideration. Discussion of the motion to refer. Hearing none, I call the vote. Those in favor of the motion to refer to the Executive Director, raise your credentials. Opposed, raise your credentials. The motion passes to refer.
All right, there are just a small handful of additional motions. Hopefully we have them all typed in. If we forgot one, please let us know as we get to these. I think we got them all though. Okay. The first one is just from the membership meeting. We did that one. Let's see. Yeah, we already did. No, go to the bottom. Keep going. We did those. Those should be right under new business.
Here we go.
All right, Harold?
Yeah, we did that already.
Yeah, we did that.
We approved it.
We did that one? Okay.
Yeah.
That one ended up as a membership meeting.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
There we go.
There we are.
All right. Eric Vigil?
Hello, I'm Eric Vigil. I know everybody says Vigil, but I don't correct him. Anyway, the rationale for this is I run a prison chess program in the state of Iowa, where I go into a prison and I run rated tournaments behind bars. I'm not allowed to use a computer. I have to use pairing cards and wall charts. It's kind of basic. Grandmaster Garyev's come out to see my prisoners. Did a blindfold simul there. Anyway, I think it's a very unique and great thing that I'm doing that is really towards our mission. You know, improving chess players or improving lives one move at a time. I've also found out from the office there's another program that's doing the similar thing. The history of this is that I asked the U.S. Chess Trust for memberships, and they provided me with a number of memberships when I first started. And from what I found out, that the way that they were providing the memberships is not legit. Hey, well, technically, well, we got memberships. I should say I don't know how they arrived. They were pennies from heaven. And I started running rated tournaments, and I've been doing it for 3 years. What I found out is that we're not able to procure those memberships in the same way we have been in the past. So what I would like to do is make this a formal part of U.S. chess. Section 6 in the bylaws, Article 3, in memberships, a blind person, on page 34, a blind person or any person who is incarcerated in a penal institution in the United States may become a special member of U.S. Chess for $18 a year. But this is also including a magazine. What I would like to do is add a regular special membership available for $7 for the purpose of playing over-the-board tournaments. And I think this is something as far as the financial cost to the institution, being that there's only 2 programs that do this, if it really takes off, we might want to reconsider it. But I think it doesn't make money for our organization, but it doesn't lose money either. And it improves the lives of the prisoners. Thank you.
Chairman Hoffpower has yielded the mic to me as he works on a motion to be presented here in a minute. As information, what was happening is that stuff under the voucher program, which is limited to scholastics, was being used for non-scholastic adults, and that practice needed to be stopped in spirit of the voucher, the group membership program. So that's just the information. Harold, make sure the mic's in front of your mouth, please.
Okay. All right, I'm in favor of this motion. I think encouraging chess in prisons played by prisoners is a positive thing that might help them adjust better when they get out of prison. And I think the $7 is a lot more reasonable for what is proposed, and we could assist with more prison memberships if this motion passes.
At the rear mic.
I don't think this is a bad idea, and I could probably think of about a dozen or 2 dozen other groups other than prisoners that I might like to do something nice for. This is certainly within the authority of the executive board to make a promotional membership, and personally I strongly recommend that they do so. But I don't think putting this into our bylaws is an appropriate, these sorts of things in the bylaws is necessary or even a good idea. This is a promotional type of membership and a good one, so let's just do it. Let's just suggest, I would move to amend it that the delegates recommend to the executive board that they create a promotional membership for prisoners.
There is an amendment proposed. Is there a second?
Second.
Now we.
Information. Isn't there already a promotional membership? The executive board. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Whoever it is that does those members.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Hold on a minute, because 3 people spoke, as the question was being asked. So if you would stop doing that, we could address those questions a little better. Mr. Lieberman, what was exactly your question, please?
The question was, isn't there already promotional membership of that nature?
For incarcerated persons? I'm not certain.
It's in the bylaws as it says specifically in section on page 34 that it is not a promotional membership. It is a special membership for $18 a year for incarcerated members of U.S. Chess.
So I think you're right. I do not believe there's a promotional membership. There is a special membership category in the bylaws that applies for a special rate for both blind and incarcerated players.
So I was unaware that there was so prison membership is already in the bylaws.
Yeah.
You're only, well, in that case, I withdraw my motion because
the proposal that has been on the floor, which you were proposing to amend, is to change the nature of that and add another membership category, essentially.
All right.
And it is possible that the executive board could do that as a promotional membership. So
Okay.
do you wish to withdraw that, or would you
no,
wish to consider
I guess
consider?
I want to be clear because the motion would involve a new type of membership.
Actually, it would.
Okay,
because
then in that case, my motion stands. Yes,
Yeah, because the present prison membership has essentially sort of a weird category to it because it has a magazine component to it that in many cases cannot be delivered.
Right.
But in some cases it can. It depends on the institution.
Okay, in that case, I just don't want to keep adding membership types to the bylaws.
We've been trying to shrink them, yes. So the motion to amend to refer this to the executive board for consideration as a promotional membership is the motion that is on the floor because it has been made and seconded. That is the motion we are discussing right now. Is there discussion to the motion to amend? For or against? For would be at the front mic to prepare. Against would be at the rear mic.
Well, he can accept that as friendly.
As the maker of the original motion, I would be against amending it to a promotional membership, or not a promotional,
It would be a promotional membership. Your term is correct.
I would be against it because that would be a year-by-year basis, and I feel very strongly that this is something our organization should be supporting indefinitely.
Mr. Parliamentarian, are you doing in your parliamentarian status or as speaking from the floor?
As speaking from the floor, Mr.
I'll
Chair.
recognize you at the front mic.
Thank you. I believe it is good to amend the motion to refer to the executive board. To implement this would otherwise require a bylaws change.
Correct.
This is not written in the form of a bylaws change. I believe that if the executive board believes this is a good idea, the executive board can immediately implement it as a promotional membership and also place a motion on next year's agenda to make a bylaws amendment if this is going to be a permanent membership.
Point of information. Does the executive board believe that this is a good thing and is willing to implement it?
Harold, please get to the mic. No one can hear you but me.
Point of information. Does the executive board, in fact, believe this is a good thing and willing to implement it immediately as a promotional membership?
We have not really discussed it because it hasn't been presented. However, the argument, speaking as a member of the executive board, which is dangerous when you're chairing the thing at the moment, the argument that this is consistent with our 501c3 mission is certainly a valid one. The number of prison memberships that we have is relatively small. The impact, arguably, of prison chess programs can be great. And therefore, I think it is certainly something worthy to be considered. And with the caveat that one of the prior speakers had indicated that there are a plethora of categories of worthy groups to have free or reduced price memberships. but this affects a very small segment of what we're doing and has some other social implications to it as well. We also may find some group who's willing to help fund such a project anyway. So I think there are some considerations there that the board certainly would be willing to take up in the process. Are there people speaking to that? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Are there people speaking for the motion to refer it as a promotional membership item, or against? Is anybody speaking to that issue?
The original member of the original.
Hold on a minute.
I was going to say it's a friendly amendment.
Stop, please. Stop, please. Okay? Don't just stop out of order. Mr. E., did you want to speak to the motion, or would you like to yield your time to
I
Mr.
would
Vigil?
yield my time.
Thank you. Mr.
Get
Vigil,
back
you
in
now
line.
have the microphone.
I would accept the amendment.
It is not possible to accept the amendment. However, the maker of the original motion has said he is not against the proposal. Do we have any other discussion of this motion? Seeing none, vote on the motion to refer to the executive board as to consider as a promotional membership. All in favor? All opposed? The motion is hereby referred. New delegates motion 18, whoa, it went away. 18-3 from Mr. Hartman. Mr. Hartman, would you like to present your motion?
Yes, sir. Very briefly, since, well, I'll just be brief. So this year I received a number of mailers for different candidates, the provenance of which was not always fully transparent. It was mostly transparent, but not fully. It occurs to me that any advertising for executive board candidates should disclose who is paying for the materials. It's a non-onerous way of increasing transparency. In bylaws, there was a question as to whether or not this should go to bylaws or elections. But in bylaws, we took this up. A number of difficulties were noted with this version of the motion. And so it was suggested that we refer this to bylaws, elections, and the executive board. And as this is a friendly suggestion, I would move that we do so. So I move that we refer to bylaws, elections, and the EB.
I second that motion.
So we have a motion to refer this new delegates motion to whom again?
The Executive Board, Bylaws Committee, and the Elections
The
Committee.
Executive Board, the Bylaws Committee, and the Elections Committee. Make it be noted that the Elections Committee and the Bylaws Committee are both delegate-appointed committees, and essentially we'll be looking at this sort of separate from the Executive Board to some extent.
And the vote at the...
Microphone.
I'm
In
sorry.
the mic closer, please.
The vote at the Bylaws Workshop favoring referral was 22 in favor, 2 against, 2 abstentions.
At the rear mic, Mr. Blue.
I would like to point out that the vote at the workshop was to refer to bylaws and election. The current motion is to refer to the executive board, bylaws, and election. With all possible respect to the executive board, we have structured the bylaws so that the executive board is not involved in any manner in the conduct of elections. It is not because we do not trust our executive board members to be involved. It is to avoid any possible appearance in the least of conflict of appearance or favoritism in the election. I'm opposed to referring to the executive board. Again, with great respect for the executive board, I move to amend the motion to refer to the bylaws and elections committee only.
Second. We have an amendment to the motion to refer, to strike the referral to the executive board. As the chair's privilege, it has been very clear as we have structured the bylaws and indeed the articles of incorporation of this entity that the election process is clearly, totally under the purview of the delegates. Any discussion of striking the referral to the executive board? All in favor of removing the referral to the executive board, please indicate. All opposed? That was pretty clear. And appreciated by the executive board. So the motion on the floor right now is to refer this motion for consideration by the debt bylaws and elections committees. They are not empowered under that to do anything, to impose anything. They would be bringing a report back or recommendations back to this body next year. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of that referral? All opposed? Wonderful. Let's move on. Are you ready? I will yield the chair back to President Hoffpower.
Thanks, Mr. Vice President. New motion 18.5, Steve Emmett. Go back up. Okay, 18.4.
I'm much better looking. Just sorry.
We won't refer that to a committee or anything.
The
Standards Committee.
The the specific JTP that I'm referring to here as a Scholastic affiliate. If I have students in my school that I know aren't going to go to tournaments, but I want them playing in my school tournament, as a Scholastic affiliate, I can fill out a JTP form. They can play in my tournament. That assigns them a number. They can get a rating, but they don't have to join the USCF because they're part of my Scholastic club. It is unclear right now whether that privilege extends to a homeschool affiliate. And I have a couple of homeschool affiliates in my area who have asked me to bring this up, so I'm bringing this up. I think they should have the same privilege as a homeschool affiliate if it's a member of their homeschool. With that, this would be a great thing. I would ask to be referred to the Scholastic Committee, and at least I think we have an affiliate committee now. Or do it? I think that would be a good thing for this, but the request is that the privilege of having the JTP form for people in your affiliate Scholastic program be extended to homeschool affiliates as well.
I would think that since the Scholastic regulations already fully embrace and provide specifications for virtual schools and homeschools, that they are already embraced as part of Scholastic.
But it's not in the JTP forms and membership. When I called the USCF office, I was told that's not clear.
Okay.
So,
just so folks will know who you are.
Right.
Chris is from Tennessee and is basically the Scholastic coordinator, very much involved in the Scholastic Championship Series in the great state of Tennessee.
Yeah, from Tennessee.
So you're moving to refer?
Yeah, moving to refer to the appropriate committees.
I would second that.
You have to be a little more specific.
Scholastic Committee?
Scholastic, I would say Scholastic Committee, Scholastic Council, if they oversee things other than the Scholastic. This will have very little to do with the national tournaments, except this kid now will come with a rating, possibly. And from our own numbers from the sheet I looked at, a third of the kids that take advantage of this end up joining the USCF. So this would increase our membership in the long run also. It just extends the privilege to homeschool affiliates in the record. Right now, that privilege is not extended in the record to homeschool affiliates.
Point of information.
Yeah, step up to the mic.
Is it now possible for any affiliate to use the JTP if they are sponsoring a Scholastic tournament?
Well, only for K-3.
Yes, but any affiliate can use it.
No.
See, any affiliate can do K-3.
K3, yes.
But for higher grades.
Hold on, stop please. Bob, would you please come to the mic?
All right.
Because I think you have an answer to that question, but
I
no
do
one
have
can
an
hear you if you're saying.
All right, I apologize. The answer is that any affiliate can submit JTP for grades K to 3, but only a Scholastic affiliate can submit for the higher grades.
So that you will know what we're talking about, anybody who, when we throw out the term JTP, it's a junior tournament program, and what it allows is for, as has been alluded to, you can register those players with the office, get an ID number. They do not have to join. They can have rated games. It is limited to players within that particular educational institution. So if you want to have a tournament within your school, your affiliate at the school and I say that broadly, can have that with only members of the school, or, as has been stated, any other affiliate can do that, limiting those players to K-3 players only. Why that is the rationale, don't ask me, I just know how to program it.
A point of order, I believe there's a motion to refer that has not yet been seconded so that it can be discussed.
Second.
Discussion on the motion to refer.
Yes. The JTP membership is a promotional membership which is under the purview of the executive board. I would amend the motion to refer to the executive board, being confident that they will consult whichever committees are appropriate for their input.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to refer this to the executive board.
I have a point of information. Currently, the rule says that the JTP is available to public school institutions only. That's why I brought that up, because it does say in our thing only public schools. I would just like to extend that to homeschool affiliate groups.
What was your question?
So it wasn't a question, it was a point of information. That's why I said point of information.
Point of information is a request for information.
I just want to make clear that the Scholastic Council and the Scholastic Committee have done a lot of work with fixing some of the problems. Not all of them are fixed. It's going to take time to fix all of them, but with the process of homeschools and how to deal with this whole thing. So we're trying to help homeschools get more access. So I believe that the committee would be in full support of this process.
Do I have the floor?
No, recognize Tim Just.
A point of order. We've had a motion to amend. We need to vote on the motion to amend.
Well, that
To
depends. I
refer to
didn't
the
hear-
executive board.
If Chris approves of it, it's a friendly amendment, we don't have to vote.
You cannot do it that way.
Without objection, you can't. If there's no objection, it's a friendly amendment.
Take the vote then.
Take the vote on the motion to refer, correct?
If they've got a motion to amend. The original motion was to refer to Scholastic.
Yes.
There's an amendment to refer to
the executive board.
So there's two votes needed, one for the amendment and one for the referral.
Speaking on the vote to amend.
Go ahead.
Sunil Virmantri, co-chair Scholastic Council. Given the super scholastic friendly executive board that we now have, council would have no objection with referring it to the board.
Okay, I call the vote to on the motion to amend. All those in favor, raise your credentials. Opposed, raise your credentials. The motion to amend has passed.
Now the referral.
Now I call the vote to refer to the executive board this motion. All those in favor, raise your credentials. Opposed, raise your credentials. The motion to refer has passed. 18.5, Steve?
Eighth edition?
This motion refers to not the one that's coming out right now, which includes the changes from all the changes made by the delegates since the 6th edition. It includes a future edition coming up, and I would like to yield my spot to Dave Coates.
First of all, I wish to eat some crow. Okay? I had talked to the previous executive director and the previous, I think he was called events coordinator, Frank Guadalupe, last year about editing the next edition of the rule book. I sought their help to gain a contract to that effect. That contract never happened. I have been acting like it did, and for that I sincerely apologize to this body and to anybody who has attended or thought that I was going to be that editor. So therefore, I'm speaking in favor of this motion. And I support the competitive bidding. That being said, though, it may be moot, okay? With the rule book going online, it makes it far easier to edit the next edition. So therefore, it may not even be needed. When the 6th edition was published, if people in this body remember, it was with the caveat that a major rewrite of the rule book was necessary and that it should have been started immediately. It was not. Therefore, I stepped up and said, hey, nobody else is doing it. Why not me? And that's the way I approached last year with the executive director and the events coordinator. So therefore, I support this motion. Thank you.
Mr. Blue?
There is a problem with the motion as written. The problem is that while the delegates control changes to the rule book, the executive board controls the process of hiring and issuing a contract for the editor of the rule book. I therefore move amending this motion to insert the words, "The delegates recommend that," at the beginning of the motion.
Second. Third.
We have a motion been made to correct some language in the current motion. Any discussion on this amendment?
Oh, thanks. I just want to accept this as friendly.
You can't accept it as a friendly amendment. That's not your motion at this point. Okay. The issue is, although Steve just indicated he thought that was within the spirit of what he was doing, and I think he does understand the situation, I'm speaking for the amendment because very clearly under the Articles of Incorporation, just push the stop button on the timer, under the Articles of Incorporation and under the bylaws, all ability to make contracts, and under Illinois law, is limited to the board of directors of the organization. So the amendment to the motion is absolutely necessary. Otherwise, this is a circular file motion without it. It can't even be legal.
Point of information. Yesterday in the presentation, Executive Director mentioned that any contract in the future will go for open bidding process. Given that, do we even need this motion?
What, did you have a question?
Yeah, that's what my question is. The question was, do we even need the motion given Executive Director already mentioned yesterday that every contract in the future will be going through an open bidding process?
Hey, Carol?
The intent would be to have an open bidding process on this. So, yeah, I don't know that the motion is necessary, but that's not for me to say.
Alan?
I don't know what mic I should stand at to make this comment.
You can cover both.
I probably can. Not every single contract that the executive board is going to execute in every single case is going to be the part of an open and competitive bidding process. It just isn't. Okay? I just want to make it clear. If we're getting a contract for telephone service, so let's just be careful we get the wording right? So I don't want there to be a misconception. When we have these sorts of issues, when we're doing events, we're soliciting bids. Is that for them? But is that an open and competitive process? Sort of not. In particular, this case, how we do it may be different. But I just want to clarify that. Don't restrict how we're doing business for things that don't make sense to do it that way.
Ken?
Insofar as the motion without the amendment would in fact be beyond the authority of the delegates, I ask unanimous consent for the motion to amend.
We are asking for unanimous consent to the motion to amend. Is there any objection? Motion is amended.
I move to refer the motion to the executive board.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to refer this to the executive board. Is there any discussion?
Yes, can I please ask you to at least display the rationale to the motion?
Oh, that's right.
Okay, so there's the rationale.
At least it's brief. Yes. Can we vote?
As a point of information, Ken will get on my case. To give you some information, this process that's being described in this motion is exactly how it happened when I got hired. So I don't get it. That's what we're already doing.
Is there any further discussion on the motion to refer? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to refer, raise your hand or raise your credentials. Opposed? Motion to refer passes.
Whoa.
18-6, Ken?
DACI 40 in the delegates call, early in the delegates call, is the motion that requires that executive board election results be tallied by region. Mr. President, I ask indulgence to conduct a quick straw poll, if I may, please.
Please.
I'd like to ask the delegates, without looking at your call, please raise your hand if you know which region your state is in.
Sorry, Ken.
There's a number of, especially the younger delegates, that don't know. The regions are, in my opinion at least, at this point, a historical anachronism. The executive director has mentioned that she has some proposal for conducting elections by electronic means rather than by postal mail. One issue is that if we are to tabulate by region, for this system to work, we would need to run 12 separate elections at 12 times the cost. This information probably is not very useful to candidates at this point. We live in a very different environment from when the regions were an item of consideration. Right now, most of the campaigning is done online, and where one is geographically seems to be much less relevant for a candidate.
The last time this came up at a delegates meeting, the delegates were strong on keeping the regions. Now things might have changed, therefore I move to refer this to both the Bylaws Committee and the Elections Committee for study and reporting back next year.
Second.
Motion has been made and second to refer this motion to the Bylaws and the Elections Committee for further study. Is there any discussion? Okay, we have discussion. Brian, are you for or against?
I'm just going to make I guess I'm for it, I guess. I was going to recommend why not refer it to the new governance committee, because this seems like an antiquated thing that would be what we would be talking about potentially.
Not relevant.
This is because this is in the delegates' motion of continuing interest, and it does affect elections.
Okay.
The Women's Committee is Ruth Herring, Northern California. The Women's Committee is talking about holding regional events, so we'd like to have a say on this also. So if you could refer to women's, that would be great.
I'm willing to accept that if I can, to add women's.
I am opposed to adding Women's Committee. It is not a sign of disrespect to women. It's just that I honestly don't see what having regional events has to do with tallying executive board election votes.
Point of information, could you read the DACI?
Hit the mic, please.
Point of information, since there's some confusion as to what scope this motion has, could you actually read the DACI to us so we know what we're voting to abolish or referring to?
Okay, DASI 40. Executive Board election results shall once again be tabulated by region beginning in 2003. There shall be 12 regions, each consisting of the same states that the region included before the discontinuation of regions, 2002.
Alan?
I think that sort of said a lot. The discontinuation of regions 16 years ago. Further, the regions that we have delegated in there group some states into regions that have nothing to do with any way those states view themselves. The great Commonwealth of Kentucky is grouped with a bunch of Yankee states that we don't have anything to do with. Like Michigan, you know. I love Michigan, but we don't identify ourselves with Michigan too awful much for any reason. Shows you what I know about what groups we would. But the point being, this is anachronism. It just needs to go. And studying it for another year doesn't change the fact that it needs to go.
Kentucky's in Region 8 according to this.
I'd like to correct something Alan just said.
Yes.
If he reads DASI 9, he will discover that his state has been kicked south to join Tennessee, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas.
As a great Kentuckian, we do further identify with those states. It is clear, however, that Kentucky in the Great War did not secede from the Union, although we did supply more soldiers to the Confederates.
I should like to jump in and reassure the gentleman from Kentucky that he never was associated with the Great North. There was actually an error in the list which has been corrected in this year's delegates call. Due to some error, there was a motion back in the 1970s to place Kentucky in Region 8. Due to a secretarial error, it was listed in Region 5 in the DACI for many years.
Well, there you go. See?
In the back.
I agree with Alan to some extent. I'm not sure he really wants to be associated with Alabama, but nevertheless, I agree that we should not refer, we should just get rid of this.
In the front.
Hi, John McCrary from South Carolina. There were arguments made in the past based on, I know people who are campaigning online, but they were based on the ability to look at campaign procedures. Plus, if the executive director is looking at making some changes, I think it would be premature to consider this, especially in view of the earlier motions about the timing of the notices and so on until that's been resolved. Am I incorrect?
I don't see how the notice of registering to vote that the office would be sending out would have anything to do with the regional breakdown of these, the states, the way they're grouped together. I don't know that it plays any real role in governance any longer, and the tool we're looking at, even if we had to run 12 elections, it still may be cheaper than printing what we have to print and send out to the delegates. So it may be a wash in the end, but certainly for simplicity's sake, it would be a lot easier to run a single election.
Is it in order for me to move to amend the motion to referral to include the Women's Committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that is so moved.
Second.
Ruth already tried that.
Yeah, that's already been.
It wasn't voted on.
I know.
So it can come up, right?
I mean, if I can accept it, I'll accept it.
Point of information, why is this a women's issue?
because the women's are having a number of regional events.
This has nothing to do.
This addresses elections.
No,
Why is tallying votes by region a women's issue? Somebody
I'd like to propose.
Can I answer that? I think I understand the problem here, okay? The women are concerned that we're getting rid of DASI 9. We're not getting rid of this DASI 9. The region definition will still exist. However, we're trying to, the motion here in front of us is to get rid of DASI 40 only.
However, DASI 40 includes the sentence, there shall be 12 regions, each consisting of the same states that the region included before the discontinuation of regions.
DASI 9.
So,
which are defined in number 9.
I understand.
This is about tallying votes under
Alan,
I have an amendment that'll solve it.
Alan, but there is that second sentence, and therefore taking that out weakens the support of regions.
Read number 9.
No, actually, it would increase it, because it would delete the sentence.
To the mic, please.
That
I have a point. I'm in line next to speak.
Well, actually, Maureen.
Actually, I'm in. Actually, the person in the back is supposed to be next. Point of clarification. Maureen Gramad, South Carolina, chair of the Women's Committee. Point of clarification. Does these regions define, from what I understand, these regions define definition of elections, but does it also include invitationals, creations of tournaments of any kind? And if not, then there's no need for the Women's Committee to be in on this discussion. Is that my understanding?
It doesn't address, DACI 40 doesn't address anything related to any tournament at all. It only addresses elections.
So therefore, then our continuation of creating these regionals that has nothing to do with the definition of what's in front of us, then, is that correct?
That's right, because this is not an election issue.
Thank you, that's what I needed to hear. Thank you.
Ken?
I move the question on the motion to amend to include the Women's Committee in the referral.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. And I'm not going to repeat that mouthful. So we call the vote now on the motion to move to refer this, to add the women to the referral, which would have, if approved, would have elections, bylaws, and women's. And the motion was to not have women included in that. Vote on that motion. In favor of adding the women to the elections and bylaws, raise your credentials. Opposed? Motion fails. Now we're continuing to discuss the motion to refer to bylaws and elections.
I'd like to suggest an amendment to the motion to refer. I would just like to strike the first sentence from DACI 40 so that the motion is to strike the first sentence, DACI 40. The first sentence.
It's out of order.
That has nothing to do with referring to bylaws and elections.
If you vote down the motion to refer, then you can make an amendment.
Is there any further discussion on the motion to refer to bylaws and elections? Okay, in the back, Luis.
Luis Salinas, Texas. I'm just in favor of just getting rid of it. This year I was able to click on the link.
That's out of order.
Well, I'm talking against referring.
He's against referring.
Okay, sorry.
This year I was able to click on the link and see how everyone voted by state. You can figure out how the region did. Why do you task them to add them all up?
How'd you figure out what state?
That wasn't released.
Beats me.
Point of information to the chair of the elections committee. Was that information known or published somewhere?
Mr. President, no, absolutely not. One may determine the voters in any given state. The votes are not tabulated by state. Currently, the ballots arrive, they are sorted by region, only by region, not by state. And so the granularity of the vote currently is by region, not by state.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion to refer to bylaws and elections?
The reason I believe this is appropriate, it wasn't on the agenda. This is a change in something we've done for a number of years, and I think studying it by these two committees is very useful for a really informed decision by the delegates next year.
Call the question.
The question has been called. Are there any objections to calling the question?
Point of information, does it require...
Microphone?
Is there any kind of extra majority required for changing a DAC, or is it a simple majority?
It is a simple majority.
Refer.
This is to refer. Hearing no further discussion, the question has been called, and hearing no objections, all those in favor of referring to bylaws and ethics, I'm sorry, bylaws and elections, raise your credentials.
Ethics doesn't want this.
We'll see. All those opposed, raise your credentials. Okay, the motion does pass by majority.
I'm timing the debate.
That's his clock.
It is.
18-7. Sean?
Sean Manross, Southern California. The motion is to make a new Dean of Scholastic Chess. Many of you will be familiar with the term Dean of American Chess. We had Helms, Bisgeier, Denker, I know I'm forgetting one here. Koltanowski, indeed, yes. And these were Deans of American Chess, indeed. But this is a different title, Dean of Scholastic Chess. The person, we all know, Dwayne Barber. He was an advocate for Scholastic Chess before Scholastic Chess constituted the vast majority of our memberships. And he had gotten an award for 20 years of service to Scholastic Chess over 20 years ago. Dwayne Barber has been a hero to many of us, certainly to myself, as I was a child who grew up and he got me into chess. Without you, Mr. Barber, I would not be here. Now, in closing, I would say this. Some of you may say that I am biased because I am a delegate from Southern California. I would point this out. We have named the Barber Tournament of K8 champions after this luminary, and he has carried on the legacy of men such as Denker, who has done so much more for children as well. I would simply say this. I may be biased as a delegate from Southern California, but I hope all of us, as delegates from US Chess, can join me in that bias. Please support Dwayne Barber for Dean of Scholastic Chess.
I agree with everything Sean said, and I would like to add my name as a co-sponsor. Harold Winston, Illinois.
Done.
I might also add that although we've had deans of chess that have been primarily grandmasters in the past, grandmasters meet other grandmasters, people that are already convinced that chess is great. Dwayne goes out there and finds kids. He's played chess in 114 countries. He finds kids out there, supports them. One of my players made the World Youth. Dwayne gave him 50 sets to go into a local township in South Africa and get chess started there. So he is reaching out in areas of chess that previous deans of chess have not had the ability to focus on. And for that reason alone, I think he deserves to be it. Thank you.
Mr. Ballou?
In light of Mr. Barber's distinguished career, I would ask the delegates to adopt this by unanimous acclamation.
Second.
Mr. Barber, I'd invite you to please say a few words. But you got 3 minutes. It doesn't matter. The mics are neutral in this case.
You better go to the floor, Mike.
want to thank the delegates, the board, and all of you. Give me a moment. My colleagues have been in scholastic chess from its infancy, almost 50 years. We have labored for kids. And most of us, many of us, don't care about the money. Doesn't matter. Doesn't mean anything. We care about kids coming forward and saying, can you show me how this piece moves? Help me learn the game. Every one of us in this room learned from a teacher, a friend, a parent. You cannot deny that. And most of you can say clearly, I started chess when I was 9 years old. And some in this room can claim even a younger age. So there are those people that we must remember who step up and say, I'll volunteer, I'll be there. One final note, I host a tournament which is 43 years old. This year it will be 44. It's named after a gentleman, Bernard Morrison. And I'll take a moment and mention one other thing. I have approximately 15 people who walk in the door and they ask me only for one thing. Where is the list of my kids? They don't ask, where's my paycheck? When will I get paid? Show me where the money is. They step up and they are engaged in helping young people become better persons. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
(18-8).
This motion is intended to address the fact that there's a fundamental difference in choosing a state affiliate when there is no existing affiliate and replacing a state affiliate in sometimes contentious, very contentious circumstances. The motion is intended to allow the executive board more time to act in that case. However, even as I was writing the motion myself, I was struggling with some of the wording to make it say exactly what I wanted. That's a clear sign to me that this should be referred to bylaws, and therefore I move to refer to bylaws.
Second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to refer to bylaws. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of referring to bylaws, raise your credentials. Opposed? Motion to refer passes. This motion out. This particular motion, he's going to paste in the update. Hold on. That's still not the correct one. You have one that says it begins with in accordance with.
Task force.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Make it bigger.
It's to the right. It's to the right. I see it.
Yeah, yeah. If you can make it print bigger. Whoops.
Okay, this gets at the Connecticut State chapter issue, and so the guts of the motion is that the delegates form the Connecticut State Chapter Resolution Committee and appoint the members so named: Al Losoff from Nevada as chair, Richard Buchanan from Colorado, Robert Messenger as Massachusetts, Ernest Schlick from Virginia, Guy Hoffman from Wisconsin, and Lakshmana Vishwanath from Texas. And should any of these members, as you may know from reading the executive board recommendation, Bob had offered his services as mediator. So if Bob is accepted as mediator by both parties, then in accordance with this particular motion, Bob would be removed from that committee so that he could perform his services solely as mediator. That's the motion. Discussion on the motion?
Question? If Bob is removed as a mediator, does someone else take his place, or is just
No.
one less member?
It's just one less member. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all who vote for the motion, raise your credentials. Opposed to the motion, raise your credentials. Motion passes.
We need to name a government task force first.
I have sent that
That's
list.
not different. That's a separate one.
Yeah, I know, but they're going to my vote of thanks, which
No,
is the
we're not.
last motion.
I sent you an email.
We're working on it.
To go in right. Actually, I'd say Alan Priest.
You spelled Manila.
Have my name spelled incorrectly.
Please tell them the correct, I just had some written notes.
It's M-E-N-N-E-L-L-A.
Thanks, Chief.
And Richard Kepke is incorrect as well. Richard, you want to give him the right spelling?
P's, it's a CK.
So it's
K-P-C-K-E.
One P, change the second P to a C.
Right.
Alex Relier is also wrong.
There were a pile of people in front of me after the meeting yesterday. I apologize. The motion is actually for the delegates to appoint this list of U.S. Chess Federation members to the governance task force.
Any discussion on the motion?
Who's the chair of the task force?
I think the task force will set its chair. I'll probably get the motion, the thing rolling, and then we'll let the group decide who's going to chair it.
Probably worth putting it in the motion.
If you go back up to the language, the task force will select its own chair.
There you go.
There we go.
Any further discussion on the motion? Call the vote. All those in favor of the motion, raise your credentials. Opposed, raise your credentials. I yield the floor to the Vice President.
The next motion that's on the floor is generally written by a gentleman who is excluded from that motion every year. But you may not be aware that our own Harold Winston is celebrating his 50th year of service as a delegate in this body. So I would like to recognize that for my friend, Harold Winston.
Thank you very much. I did start in 1969. I will add that in that year I was not an Illinois delegate, but we had proxies, and I got a proxy from Ben Crate of Michigan. And every other year since, I've been a delegate from Illinois, or a delegate at large, or an executive board member. And it's really a pleasure because I think the delegates have shown through these years very good sense, even when they disagree with me. And I've always been proud to be part of this body. So thank you. And I have an next.
Congratulations on finding your hat.
Jimmy found my hat for me. All right, NDM 1810, our traditional vote of thanks. We give a vote of thanks to the following people: Mike Hoffbar for his able chairing of a delegates meeting, Ken Ballou for his service as parliamentarian, Carol Meyer for her fine first year as executive director, Carol Meyer, Chuck Unruh, Alan Priest, Mike Hoffbar, and the entire executive board for the successful financial year, Wayne Clark for service as chief TD of the U.S. Open, John Haskell for service as TD of the Denker Barber National Girls Tournament of Champions and Senior Tournament of Champions, Maureen Grimaud for all her work on the Women's Committee and the NGTOC, Steve Shutt for his service as MC of the Denker Barber NGTOC opening and closing ceremonies, Jennifer Shahad and Leela Daquin for their service as MCs of the awards luncheon, which did finish on time, Awander Liang for doing the simul's for Denker Barber and GTOC players, Deborah Robeson, Kim Kramer, and Susan Cantor for their work on credentials, and Grant Owen for running the delegates' agenda projector.
I yield to the secretary.
A couple of fast announcements here again. Women's Committee, I announced this yesterday, but I guess nobody showed up, but she would like all states to come over and either confirm or give the new female coordinator for the state if it's changed, but she also wants you to confirm if she has a name from years past. As secretary, we'll be meeting in an executive board closed session right after this to discuss, among other things, committee assignments. What I need from committees, please, is a list of changes. I don't need a complete roster of your committee. I need changes, adds, or deletes. And lastly, I just want to thank, putting on my other hat, and I unfortunately left it in the other playing hall. Okay, to say thanks to U.S. Chess for allowing us to host another U.S. Open here in Madison, Middleton area. We really appreciate it. We had some problems with the hotel, especially, obviously with the room block. So I thank everyone for working through that and being patient. And I think it was a good tournament. We had 19 GMs participating, and I think on board 2 this afternoon, as was in 2013, we got somebody from Wisconsin there that I'll be rooting for. So thank you all for attending. We'll see you all next year in Orlando.
Okay, Mike.
Just one more quick thing.
We're not finished.
Yeah, just handed a quick note here. We also wanted to thank Pete for running the projector here today. Thank you, Pete.
There's 2 more items on the agenda.
So on the note that Mike mentioned about the committee members, even if you sent it by email, please reaffirm with Mike, because Mike either A, may not have received your email of changes to committees, or B, you may have had some changes subsequent to having sent that email. So please confirm with Mike Neatman, our secretary, that you've got your committee changes to him so that when the executive board meets in closed session, we get all those committee changes taken care of. Okay, we have 2 items left on the agenda. First, what I'd like to do is call forward Lakshmana Vishwanath. Vish. Vish, I'd like to present you with this plaque in commemoration of your 1 year on the executive board. We've enjoyed the dialogue. We've enjoyed your contributions to the various issues that we've discussed, and we wish you the best in all your future endeavors, especially on this Connecticut State Resolution Committee. But thank you very much for your service.
I just want to say a few words. Thank you all for having me here, putting up with me for 1 full year. I know it was hard for the executive committee. Mike, office, a little closer. Okay. I want to thank Carol and the ED office for providing a great service to me and the rest of the executive board. Thanks to the executive board. Alan, love you, Alan. That's very special because we always are talking. I know you will miss me, but I will miss you, even if you don't miss me. First of all, I'm an NTD, so I'm not going anywhere. I'll be around running tournaments. I have done that in the past, so I'll be around. Plus, I'm planned to be involved with some committees. As you can see, the Connecticut, which is the best one. Everybody will love me after that. I'm going to be around, but I'll miss you. For everybody who supported me and had faith in me in the last 2 years, electing me once, and the second time I didn't make it. Randy, good luck to you. Ryan, good luck to you in the new board. Thank you all.
I'd like to invite forward Angelina Belakoskaya. Angelina, I think as many of you know, Angelina for the past 3 years as a member of our executive board has been not only a voice of diversity on our board, but also a voice that consistently, sometimes I would even say constantly, challenged the threads of thinking. And this is important. I mean, we were about to approve a contract as an executive board that had serious mathematical errors. And because of Angelina's attention to the detail and digging into the nuts and bolts of what the contract numbers were, we would have awarded it to the wrong contractor. That's important. It keeps us not only out of legal problems, but it puts the Federation in better stead from a financial perspective. So Angelina, for your dedication to what we did, not only as an executive board, but for your contributions to the many committees to which you were a liaison and had influence, and foremost, I think, for you being a voice of diversity on the executive board, I offer and we offer our appreciation and best wishes, and thank you for your 3 years of service.
Dear chess friends and US chess delegates. So first of all, I would like to thank you to all of you for this amazing experience of being elected and serving 3 years on the executive board. To have my voice, to try to contribute and improve the conditions for everybody, for the chess players, for the new chess players that are coming in, and because I'm sure that we're going to grow, and for everybody, for all of you, for our organization to move forward. So as you know, in 2015, I ran on the promise that I will provide independent voice, which I believe I delivered. So, but also the transparency, accountability, and integrity of the executive board and all of us. And this is what I tried to deliver. So I brought in my strong passion for chess and chess players, but also the understanding and skills that are not just on the chessboard, but outside of it as well. As many of you know, I started to play chess when I was 6 years old, so I have quite a bit of experience. I played as a kid, I became a woman grandmaster, I participated in the tournaments all over the world, so I have the experience of growing up in USSR and seeing the culture and appreciation for chess there. I also have spent quite a bit of years in the United States representing United States chess team on 3 chess Olympiads. I played many times in the US Women's Championship and became 3 times US Women's Champion. And I really felt that this is the important knowledge, but also I have 3 kids who are playing chess, so I brought in the knowledge of a chess mom, chess parent, the experience that comes with it. And I'm a TD, I have my own chess academy, so that's a different set of perspectives, but very useful in my opinion, and In addition to it, I also brought my knowledge from the finance world, from the academia, because I graduated from New York University with mathematics in finance. I worked in the corporate world. I'm now in academia and I'm teaching at 2 universities. So with all that, I really feel that I have the unique experience, and I think this is our strength. Exactly like Mike said, it's our strength is in diversity. When we have the opinions, different experience, different knowledges, and we contribute those, but able to work together respectfully as a team players and trying to stay focused on what's important, but not compromising on what we believe is absolutely integral part or as our core values. So with that, I can tell you that you probably know, I strongly supported women's chess. I supported our seniors because I believe they deserve to have the recognition the same way as the veterans. They have spent all their life in chess. I supported accessibility of chess to everybody so that we grow as an organization and we provide chess for everyone, for everyone's enjoyment. I also supported the top players, the youth. I'm really thrilled that we're going to have a team on the under 16 Olympiad, and it actually was great that our senior team the first time went to the World Championship and became World Senior champions. So with all that, I really hope that moving forward, the executive board will continue those movements, that we will grow as an organization, we will bring more benefits to the members, and we will recognize our members. We have 100,000 members in the organization, and according to VP of Finance, this is our strength because this is our stable and predictable income, and we really have to make effort to continue it and to grow. And obviously we have our new mission, so we need to grow the game and bring chess to everybody regardless if they are the members or not members of the organizations. With that, if we have our strong core, if we have our members, if we grow our members, we will have more chance to attract corporate connections, corporate sponsorship, and we will have, moving forward, connections with the universities. I was really happy to hear Dwayne Barber support of college scholarships because this is on the agenda. We need to get to the next step. We need to bring new opportunities, and scholarships are important, the same as chess clubs at the universities. So anyway, there is a lot of things moving forward for us to do, and I appreciate everybody's contribution, everyone who is here, who is passionate about chess, all the debates, and I also appreciate the executive board members who were helping me along the way, because obviously I came with my set of experience and skills, but with lack of some others. One of them was to write in the motion, so I appreciate Mike Needmont helping me on that a lot, and other board members. And also, I feel that I still need to learn how to be better at politics without compromising on the core values. So, again, thank you everybody. It was really a fulfilling experience. I thought it was very important. I look forward to contribute as much as I can in the future. And I'm really happy that I had this opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll have the outgoing board members please exit the stage, please. And I'd also like to invite forward the new members elected to the executive board. First, from the great state of Iowa, Mr. Randy Bauer. And second, from the great state of Kentucky, Mr. Ryan Velez. Would our new board members please take their seats?
Is this the old one?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I present your new executive board for the coming year. As a reminder, first off, to the executive board, our closed meeting is at 3 p.m. this afternoon. At least that's where it's scheduled. Alan may wish to modify that, or we may propose to modify that.
Can we move that up to 1? It will help us. We have some things to
Yeah.
do in closed session, particularly with our international committee, and 1 would less interfere with playing in the final round. Would it not? Okay, could we meet at 1, please?
Okay, we'll meet at 1.
Right. Yeah, and I would like to probably say a few words at the closing of the round at 3 o'clock. So if we could have a break around 3.
That'd be perfect.
A few minutes, yeah, just a few minutes.
Okay, and also remind those that are still present, and we hope many of you are, is that at 6 p.m. this evening is when we will have the open executive board meeting. So 6 p.m. this evening.
In this room.
Yeah, in here. So I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion has been made and rapidly seconded that we adjourn. Is there any discussion? I didn't think so. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Randy Bauer, it's 11:12.